Hey, wide awake family. If you're not part of the family yet and love creepy stories, then hit that subscribe button and join us. Tap the bell icon so you'll never miss a story. It really helps out the channel. If you've already done all that, then smash that like button to lock it in, and please tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I would love to interact with you legends. Now to the story.
I wasn't even planning on going out that night. My flat was a mess. I had leftovers in the fridge, and the idea of putting on makeup after work sounded like torture. But he'd been asking all week, and something about the way he texted felt different. Not too try-hard, not creepy, just casual. His profile didn't have the usual half-naked gin shots or blurry group pictures either. Just simple ones, a hoodie, a smile, a dog in the background. I thought, whatever, it's just dinner, I'll be home by 11. The place we met wasn't anything fancy. A small Italian place tucked into the corner of a busy street. Warm lights, a mix of people laughing over pasta, couples tucked into booths. He was already sitting there when I walked in, glass of water in front of him. First thought that hit me, he looked exactly like his pictures. No weird angles, no, is that even the same person situation? He even stood up when I got to the table. The conversation flowed in that way you hope for but never expect. No awkward silences. No weird comments, just back and forth talking like we'd already known each other. We ordered too much food, stayed longer than planned, even shared dessert. I caught myself laughing so loud a couple at the next table turned around. He didn't seem to mind. When it ended, it felt normal, like a good kind of normal. He walked me to my car, said something about how we should do it again. No overstepping, no weird touches. Just a wave and a grin. I remember driving home thinking, okay, maybe dating apps aren't complete trash after all. The flat was quiet when I got back. Same way I left it. Shoes by the door, mail on the counter. That faint smell of detergent that never quite leaves. I kicked my heels off, set my bag down, and was heading to grab a glass of water when I noticed something sitting dead center on my coffee table. It wasn't there when I left. I know that because I'd shoved a pile of laundry on the couch earlier, and the table had been completely clear. Now it wasn't. A key. My key. Not just any spare, but a copy of my apartment key. The same shape. The same little scratch mark near the top where I'd dropped it once. Lying there like it had always belonged. Next to it, a piece of lined paper folded in half. My stomach twisted before I even picked it up. The note said, "Can't wait for date number 2." At first, my brain did that thing where it tries to explain away the impossible. Maybe my landlord. Maybe I'd forgotten I had an extra maid ages ago. Maybe it wasn't even mine. But no, I slid it into my lock. Perfect fit. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the door, every creak in the building sounding like footsteps. My phone was on the nightstand, his messages from earlier still open. It looked so harmless now, like they belonged to a completely different person. The next morning I checked everything. Windows, door frames, under the bed like a kid scared of monsters. Nothing. The key was real low. I left it locked inside my drawer. I thought maybe I'd just block him, move on, pretend it was some kind of twisted prank. But then another thought hit me harder. He'd have been in my flat already. Not last night, earlier. At some point before we even sat across from each other. I replayed every second, walking to my car, the way he waited at the restaurant, how relaxed he seemed. Like he wasn't just on a first date, but checking off the next step of some plan. I didn't want to tell anyone because it sounded insane. Who'd believe me? I found a key and a note after a date doesn't exactly scream call of police. I worked from home that week and avoided going out. My curtains stayed shut. Every night, I slid a chair under the handle of the front door. A few days later, my bathroom mirror fogged up while I showered. When I wiped it down, there was something etched faintly into the glass. Not written with steam, scratched into the surface itself. Just one word, soon. That was when it really sank in. Whoever he was, whatever he wanted, he wasn't done. I went back through his dating profile, every detail I thought I'd paid attention to before. The pictures of his dog, same angle, same background, no variety. Stock looking, almost staged. The smile that suddenly seemed too straight, too practiced. His bio was nothing but generic lines, the kind you could paste from anywhere. I felt stupid staring at it, like I should have known. The app said his account was still active. Last seen 2 hours ago. I thought about deleting mine, but then realized, what if that was the only way to see if he was still around? The only way to track if he got close again? Nights stretched into mornings, and I couldn't shake the sound of my own lock turning in my head. I kept picturing him standing there while I wasn't home, holding his copy of the key, deciding whether or not to use it. The worst part wasn't even the key itself. It was a note. The casual handwriting, the way he wrote date number 2 like we'd already agreed, like I didn't even get a say anymore. One night I came back from a late shift. Everything looked fine until I walked into the kitchen. On the counter, there was a wine glass. Clean, upside down, like it had just been washed. I don't want that style of glass. That's when I stopped doubting myself. I haven't opened the drawer where the key is since. I moved my dresser in front of my bedroom door, started sleeping with the TV on just to drown out the silence. My phone buzzes sometimes with random numbers, no voicemail. I don't answer. The app says his profile isn't available anymore, either deleted or blocked. Doesn't matter. He doesn't need an app. Every time I come home, I scan the coffee table first. My chest doesn't unclench until I see it empty. Still, part of me knows it won't stay that way forever. The first time it was a key. The second time it was a glass. Whatever the next time is, I know it'll be worse. I honestly wasn't planning to ghost her. I know how that sounds, but it wasn't some strategy or anything. The date itself wasn't bad. She was pretty, funny in a dry way, and we didn't run out of things to talk about. We met at this burger place near the station, the kind of spot where the tables are too close together and you can hear every word from the people next to you. She ordered the exact same thing I did. Double cheeseburger with chili fries, and laughed like it was some wild coincidence. It felt scripted in a way, like too perfectly timed. We walked after, ended up at this tiny dive bar with sticky floors and neon lights that flickered over the pool table. She told me she loved spots like that because they reminded her of where she grew up. I asked where that was, but she dodged it with a joke about how mysterious she was. The whole thing was light, harmless, nothing that screamed run. But something just sat weird in my chest, like I was following lines in a play I didn't remember agreeing to. When I got home, I thought I'd text her, but I didn't. Then the next day, I thought about it again, and didn't. And then it just turned into ghosting without me even saying the word. Her name stayed near the top of my chats for a week until it slid down behind other people. I figured she'd move on. People do. About 2 weeks later, I got a random notification on WhatsApp. Some unknown number added me to a group chat. I almost left right away because I hate group chats with strangers. But the title of the chat froze me. Her name. Just her name. Inside were over 100 guys. No joke, over 100. Different area codes, different profile pics. Some had their real names, some had nicknames. At first I thought it was spam, but then I scrolled. Message after message after message. All about her. The same opening line about loving the smell of coffee shops. The same first date at the burger place. The same laugh about ordering the same food. The same detour to a dive bar with flickering lights. Even the same excuse about being mysterious when asked where she grew up. It was like watching my own night played back over and over, just with different actors in my place. The guys compared notes, not even exaggerating. Some screenshotted her texts, word for word, the same phrases she'd sent me, down to the way she used too many dots at the end of sentences. Then came the part that made my skin crawl. A bunch of them said she'd left something behind in their apartments. A scarf, a lighter, a cheap bracelet, harmless little items put always in the same spot, by the nightstand or tucked under a couch cushion, like markers. One guy swore he came home from work to find one of her earrings balanced on his TV stand. He lived alone, had locked up, and never gave her a key. Another said she'd slipped a notebook into his bookshelf, filled with blank pages except for one in the middle that had his birthday written on it. I thought they were exaggerating. Guys online loved to one-up each other, but the sheer amount of repetition in their stories didn't feel random. It felt like pattern, like she was rehearsing the same routine with all of us, leaving behind these weird little trails. Scrolling back, I saw the group had been around for months. Some guys were brand new, just joined. Others had been there since the start, documenting everything. They treated it like some unofficial support group. Half of them wanted to warn people, half just wanted answers. No one had ever gotten a clear one. My phone buzzed constantly as more guys were added. Every few minutes, another number popped up with the same story. Burger place, dive bar, mystery laugh, strange item left behind. A cycle. That night, I checked my apartment like a maniac. I went through every drawer, under the bed, between couch cushions. Nothing. I almost relaxed until I noticed my coat hanging by the door. I hadn't worn it since that night. I reached into the pocket. A matchbook. From the bar with the sticky floors. I don't smoke. I never took one. But there it was, folded open, and inside the cover was my own name scribbled in neat handwriting. I didn't post it in the group. Something about sharing it with all those guys made it feel worse, like it would solidify it. I shoved the matchbook in the trash and went to bed, except I didn't sleep. The next morning, the group chat had blown up. Some guy claimed he saw her again, not on a date, but just standing outside his building at night. When he went down to confront her, she was gone. Another said he matched with her again on the app under a totally different name, same pictures though. No matter how many people blocked and reported, she always came back with a fresh profile. I stared at my phone, scrolling until my thumb hurt, trying to decide if I should leave the group. But I didn't. Something about knowing there were others made me feel less crazy. Except it also made it worse, because it meant she wasn't just some bad date. She was something bigger, something spread across all of us, threading us together without us even knowing it. Later that week, I came home from work and found another notification. Not from WhatsApp this time. From Tinder. It wasn't her profile. It was a group message. I didn't even know Tinder had group messages. Same name, same group. This time, it wasn't just guys. A couple of women, too. Same stories, same notes, same patterns. I deleted the app, blocked the number, even switched my assignment card. But every night, I checked my pockets, my shelves, under my couch cushions, waiting for something new to appear. Because if it happened once, it'll happen again.
Hey guys, really sorry to interrupt. If you're still listening, then you're enjoying the story so far. And if you are enjoying, then please hit that like button. That's all I ask of you. Thanks so much. Now back to the stories.
It started on a boring Sunday night. I was laying in bed with my phone balanced on my chest, scrolling through profiles half out of boredom, half because I didn't want to think too much. My friends had been telling me to put myself out there again, and I figured swiping around was easier than actually talking to people in real life. That's when I saw him. At first, my brain glitched. I thought the app was showing me old pictures from my camera roll, like somehow my phone had messed up and pasted the wrong photo. But no, it was a profile. His name was different. Ethan. And the bio said he worked in finance, but the face. The exact face I knew better than anyone. My ex. He wasn't supposed to exist anymore. He died 2 years ago. I stared at the screen so long my phone dimmed itself. Every detail was the same. The scar under his eyebrow from when he'd fallen off his bike as a kid. The crooked smile that never looked right in photos. Even the haircut he had during our last summer together. I swiped right without even thinking, like my body acted before my brain caught up. It was a match instantly. My chest felt like it was full of concrete. I didn't message him. I just shut my phone off and left it face down on the nightstand, but I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined him alive, sitting somewhere waiting for me. The next morning, I convinced myself it was just someone who looked like him. People say everyone has a twin out there. Maybe this was mine. I deleted the app, told myself it wasn't worth spiraling over. A month later, my friend convinced me to re-download it. She swore I needed practice dates to get back in the flow. I laughed it off when I gave in. Fresh profile, fresh start. I scrolled past a bunch of randoms until I stopped at dead again. Same face. This time, the name was Marcus. Bio said he was a teacher. Pictures of him hiking, holding a coffee cup, standing by a lake. But it wasn't Marcus. It was him again. Same scar, same eyes. Not a lookalike. The same. I matched again, just to see. Same instant match. No message from him, no opener. Just silence, like he was waiting for me to make the first move. That night, I pulled out old photo albums, scrolling through saved pictures on my laptop. I compared them side by side with the profiles. Identical, down to the smallest detail. I told myself maybe someone had stolen his pictures. Catfishing, identity theft, whatever you want to call it. That had to be the explanation. But if that were true, why 2 different names? Why different jobs, different bios, different photos that I'd never seen before? Weeks went by and I couldn't stop myself. Every time I re-downloaded the app, he was there again. New name, new occupation, same exact face. Sometimes a suit and tie, sometimes gym clothes, Sometimes casual selfies in a car. Always him. And always an instant match. The worst part wasn't even seeing him. It was that I started swiping just to find him. Like some part of me was addicted to checking if he'd show up again. Like if I didn't see him, I'd panic that he was gone for good. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to meet him, or at least see if he'd agree to it. The latest profile had him listed as Connor, 29, worked in marketing. I messaged first. Simple, like I'd start with anyone else. He responded within minutes. Normal, casual replies. We set a time. A coffee shop in the middle of town. The kind of place you couldn't mistake for anywhere else. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even know how to explain it. When I got there, my hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my cup. And then he walked in. It was him. Alive. Breathing. Smiling like nothing had ever happened. Same scar, same everything. But he wasn't him. He introduced himself with a name from the app. He talked about his job, the one I knew wasn't real. He asked me about my hobbies, as if we'd never shared years of life together. His mannerisms were different, stiffer, almost like someone had studied him and copied what they thought he'd be like. I sat there barely saying anything, just nodding and sipping my coffee, my stomach a knot of confusion and dread. He never slipped. Never once called me by my name like he used to. Never once gave any sign that he recognized me. When it ended, he shook my hand and left like it was just a normal first date. I sat there long after he was gone, staring at the empty chair. That night, I deleted the app again. But the damage was done. Everywhere I went, I started seeing him. On the train, across the street, in a reflection of store windows. Always slightly different. A new haircut, new clothes, but the same exact face. My friends started noticing how tired I looked. I stopped going out as much, scared I'd run into him again. But the truth was I didn't need to go out. He always found me on the app. No matter how many times I deleted it, no matter how many times I started over, he was there waiting. New name, new life, same face. The last time I checked, he wasn't alone. I scrolled through and saw 3 different profiles in a row. All of them. Different names, different jobs, all at once. I closed the app, deleted it for the last time, and tossed my phone across the room. But it doesn't matter. Because I know when I open it again, he'll be waiting. I wasn't even planning to meet her that soon. Usually I drag out the messaging thing for at least a week, make sure they're not weird, see if the replies are decent. But she was different. She wasn't pushy, but she was confident. Said she loved cooking and insisted that I come over for dinner instead of wasting money on some overpriced restaurant. I thought it was bold, but at the same time, I was tired of greasy takeout. Free home-cooked meal, I couldn't really say no. Her place was a small brick house on a quiet street, the kind with old street lamps and a line of parked cars on both sides. Not too flashy, not too run down. Just normal. She opened the door before I even knocked, like she'd been waiting right by it. She had an apron on, hair tied back, and the smell of garlic hit me immediately. It felt warm and welcoming, like she actually wanted me there. The inside was spotless. Not just tidy, spotless. Everything had its place. Shelves lined with books sorted by color, counters wiped so clean they practically shone. There were candles lit even though it wasn't that dark out. Music was playing low, the kind of background jazz you'd expect at some fancy dinner. We sat down, and I could tell she'd gone all out. Steak, roasted vegetables, fresh bread on the side. She poured wine without even asking. Conversation was easy, and honestly, I was impressed. No awkward pauses, no red flags, nothing. Just food and laughter. Halfway through, I excused myself to the bathroom. She pointed down the hall and went back to slicing bread. The bathroom was at the end of a short corridor, plain and neat like the rest of the house. But as I passed, I noticed a door on the left side, heavy, wooden, and shut with a padlock. Not a flimsy lock either, like the kind you'd see on storage units. Something about it made me pause. It wasn't hidden, but it also wasn't normal. Who padlocks a door inside their own house? Curiosity got the better of me. I leaned closer, listening. Nothing, just silence. But when I looked down, I noticed scratches around the frame, like the wood had been scraped at some point. I told myself to ignore it and kept going. Used the bathroom, washed my hands, stared at myself in the mirror longer than I should have. But walking back, I stopped again at that door. The lock was hanging slightly loose, like it hadn't been shut properly. I don't even know why I did it, but I pulled it. The lock slid open without resistance. My chest tightened instantly. The door creaked when I pushed, revealing a narrow staircase leading down. The air smelled different, stale, almost metallic. I shouldn't have gone down, but something in me needed to know. I stepped onto the first stair, then the second. The wood groaned under my weight, every sound way too loud. The basement was dim, lit only by a single bulb swinging from the ceiling. The walls were lined with shelves, and nailed to the far side were dozens of plastic cards. IDs. Driver's licenses. Rows of them, pinned like some twisted collection. I froze. My eyes darted from one to the next. Different faces, different names. Men. All men. Some of them looked new, shiny, and recent. Others were older, edges cracked, pictures faded. There were too many to count. My stomach dropped when I realized one of them was nailed dead center, slightly larger than the others. A passport. The guy in the picture looked about my age. His eyes were glazed like he'd taken the photo under pressure. I backed up so fast I almost tripped on the stairs. My mind spun. I didn't know what the hell I was looking at, but I knew I shouldn't have seen it. My heart was hammering so loud I was sure she could hear it from upstairs. I pulled the door shut behind me, fumbling to snap the padlock back into place. My hands were shaking so bad it nearly slipped out of my grip. I forced myself to breathe, forced my face to look calm, and I walked back into the dining room. She looked up and smiled like nothing was wrong, asking if I wanted more bread. I sat down again, but the food in front of me looked different now. Heavy, tainted. Every bite I'd already taken churned in my stomach. She talked casually, pouring herself another glass of wine, her hands moving so smoothly like she'd done this 1,000 times before. I nodded when I needed to, laughed in the right spots, pretended I didn't just see a wall of IDs in her basement. Inside, every part of me was screaming to get out, but I couldn't just run. If she knew I'd been down there, I didn't know what she'd do. I stayed just long enough to make it seem normal. Ate a little more, thanked her for the meal, said it was getting late and I had work in the morning. She didn't protest. She just walked me to the door, smiling like a perfect host. When the door shut behind me, I walked down the street as calmly as I could until I turned the corner. Then I ran. I don't even remember unlocking my car, just slamming the door and driving until the house blurred together. That night, I didn't sleep. The images of those IDs stuck in my head. Dozens of men. Different names, different faces, all linked to the same place. I thought about reporting it, but what would I even say? That I snuck into her basement and saw something I wasn't supposed to. That she had a collection of men's identities nailed to her wall like trophies. I haven't opened a dating app since. And I never went back for the padlock I forgot to click shut. I didn't even really want to meet him that night. It was one of those days where everything feels heavy, and all I wanted was to curl up in bed with some trash TV. But I'd already said yes earlier in the week, and he kept texting how excited he was. Canceling felt like more energy than just showing up. He picked the spot. A casual little pub tucked between two office buildings. I liked that it wasn't too busy, just dim lights, pool tables in the back, the smell of fried food in the air. I got there first and grabbed a table near the window. When he walked in, he looked normal. Jeans, jacket, easy smile. The kind of guy you don't immediately get bad vibes from. Conversation was fine. He asked about my work, told me about his. We ordered burgers, fries, the kind of food that keeps your hands busy when the silence drags. At one point, he pulled his phone out, probably to check a message. He set it down on the table, screen up without really thinking. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. It just caught my eye because the brightness lit up his face. That's when I saw it. My name, my exact name, at the top of the screen. Below it, a little map. A blue dot moving slowly down a street. A dot that wasn't him. A dot that was me. I froze. I blinked a few times like maybe my brain was tricking me. But no, it was a map of the city, and that dot was updating in real time. The trail behind it matched everywhere I'd been that day. Work, the bus stop, walking to the pub. It was my live location. On his phone. I hadn't shared it with him. I hadn't even known you could get someone's location without them sending it. My stomach dropped so fast I felt like I'd been punched. I forced myself to keep a straight face, nodding along to whatever story he was telling. But inside, my mind was racing. How did he get it? Did he hack me? Did he put something on my phone? I glanced at my bag on the chair beside me. My phone was inside, screen dark, untouched since I sat down. The idea that it was broadcasting my every move made my skin crawl. He kept talking like nothing was wrong, like he didn't realize I'd seen it. He laughed, dipped a fry in ketchup, told me about some vacation he wanted to take. I stared at him and thought about how easy it would have been for him to show up anywhere I went. At work, my house, the corner store. I excused myself, pretending I needed the bathroom. I locked the stall and pulled out my phone. I dug through settings, locations, apps. Everything looked normal. No weird notifications, no suspicious apps I didn't remember downloading. But then again, I wasn't an expert. For all I knew, they could have been hidden. My heart wouldn't slow down. I thought about just leaving through the side door, but something about the idea of him following me made my legs freeze. If he already knew where I was, running wouldn't fix it. I went back to the table. He smiled like nothing was off. His phone was face down now. I didn't know if he realized I'd noticed or if he'd just casually flipped it. I picked at my fries, barely tasting anything. He kept trying to keep the conversation light, but I could feel this thick weight between us. I couldn't stop picturing that map. That dot moving around like I was nothing but a tracker to him. When the check came, I pulled out cash just so I wouldn't have to wait for the card machine. He insisted on walking me out, and I didn't have the guts to argue. The night air was cold, and the street was quieter than I wanted it to be. We stopped outside the pub, and he said something about how he had a great time. I forced a smile and said I'd text him. Then I turned and walked fast down the block, pretending like I wasn't about to collapse from panic. The second I turned the corner, I ducked into a random shop and waited. I stood near the back, peeking through the window, watching to see if he followed. After 5 minutes, I left to the other door and ran to the bus stop. On the ride home, I held my phone so tight my hand hurt. I turned it off completely just in case. My reflection in the window looked pale, drained. When I got home, I checked everything again. Deleted half my apps, reset location permissions, even turned off my Wi-Fi. I wanted to throw the phone out the window, but that wouldn't solve anything either. I didn't sleep. Every sound in the hallway made me sit up. I could imagine him outside, holding his phone, watching that little dot move from room to room in my apartment. The next morning, I borrowed a friend's phone and logged into my dating app. His profile was gone. Not unmatched, not blocked. Just gone completely, like it had never existed. But my phone kept buzzing all day. Notifications from numbers I didn't recognize. When I opened one, it was just a blank message. No words, no emojis, nothing. Just proof that whoever it was had my number. I shut it off again, left it in my drawer, and haven't turned it back on since. But I still think about that screen. My name at the top, my dot moving around like I wasn't even human, just something to be tracked. And I know if I ever turn my phone back on, that dot will start moving again. I woke up with the worst taste in my mouth and the kind of headache that makes you regret every decision you made the night before. My phone was face down on the nightstand, buzzing like it was trying to crawl away. For a second, I thought I'd slept through work or that my mom was blowing up my phone again. But when I finally picked it up, the screen was filled with notifications that didn't make sense. Your application has been submitted. Your account is being reviewed. Welcome to your new credit line. Dozens of emails, one after another, all timestamps from around 3 a.m. I sat up too fast, and the room spun. My brain tried to catch up with what I was seeing. I hadn't applied for anything. I'd been on a date. A long, messy first date with a girl from the app. We'd had too many drinks, crashed at my place, and apparently somewhere in the middle of that blur, something else happened. I scrolled through. Loan applications, credit card signups, online banking requests. All in my name, all with my information. I opened one email and my stomach dropped when I saw my social security number in the confirmation page. My exact number, typed perfectly. I looked around my room like the answers would just appear in the mess of clothes and empty bottles. She wasn't there anymore. No note, no goodbye, nothing. Just gone. That's when it hit me. She used my phone. While I was passed out, she went through it. My notes app had my info saved. Stuff I put there for convenience, like passwords and numbers I didn't want to forget. She must have found it, copied it all, and used it right there in my bed while I snored next to her. My chest tightened. I opened my banking app, heart hammering. 2 new accounts linked, both pending approval. I hadn't even touched them. I threw the blanket off and paced around my room trying to piece the night together. I remembered meeting her at the bar, laughing too loud, buying one too many shots. She was magnetic in that way people are when you know they're trouble, but you go along with it anyway. We stumbled back to mine, ordered food we didn't finish, and that's where the memory cut off. The idea of her sitting there scrolling through my phone while I drooled into a pillow made me sick. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't random. She planned it. Oops, I forgot my card at home when we were at the bar. The way she insisted on charging her phone at my place. The casual glance when I put in my lock code. It was all steps in the same direction. I went through my phone like a detective, checking every app. My email had been opened, my messages scrolled. Even my photo album was left open on some random screenshot of a pay stub. She hadn't just skimmed, she had dug deep. By noon, I was on the phone with customer service, trying to explain how I hadn't applied for 10 different cards overnight. The woman on the line was polite but robotic, asking me to confirm information while I rubbed my temples and stared at the dent on the other side of my bed. The kicker came when I logged into my credit report. She'd actually gotten a few of them approved already. Thousands of dollars in my name, ready to be used. I felt this sinking dread like I was underwater. My name wasn't mine anymore. It was hers to use however she wanted. I texted her, of course. Nothing. Not even delivered. I went back to the app where we met, and her profile was gone. Not unmatched. Deleted, like she'd never been there. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how clean it all was. She hadn't stolen anything physical. No wallet, no phone, no obvious trace. She left quietly, knowing the real damage would come days later when I started getting bills for things I didn't buy. That night, I barely slept. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. More emails, more approvals, some rejections. My name and information floating around in places I couldn't pull back from. I started replaying every little thing she said, trying to figure out if she hinted at this. She joked about how trusting people were with their phones, how much of their lives were inside those little screens. At the time, I laughed. Now it felt like she'd been spelling out the whole time. The worst part was knowing I wasn't special. If she did this to me, she'd done it to others. I imagined a line of guys waking up like I did, staring at screens filled with the same notifications. Credit drained, names ruined, all for one night of drinks and laughter. By the end of the week, I'd canceled cards I didn't even apply for, changed passwords, wiped my phone. My credit score tanked anyway. Every call to fix it felt like trying to climb out a hole someone else had dug for me. And she was gone. No trace, no way to track her down. Just a ghost tied to my bank account. Sometimes, late at night, I open my email and stare at the endless stream of thank you for applying messages. My name typed neatly across them like I willingly handed it over. All because I thought I was just going on a first date. I thought the worst part of dating apps was just the bad conversations. Like the endless hey messages, guys who ghost after 2 texts, or people who look nothing like their pictures. I never really thought about what could happen after things actually went well. We matched on a Tuesday. He wasn't my usual type, but he seemed normal enough. His pictures were simple, no filters, and his bio wasn't cringe. He messaged first, and the conversation was easy. By Friday, he suggested meeting for drinks. I told myself it would just be one drink, one chance, and then I could go home if it felt weird. The bar was small, tucked into a side street I'd walked past 100 times but never noticed. He was already there when I arrived, and seeing him in person calmed me a bit. He looked exactly like his photos, which was rare. He smiled when he saw me, waved me over, and suddenly it felt like maybe this wouldn't be a waste of time. We talked. We laughed. He was charming without being over the top. He asked me questions instead of just talking about himself. He bought the second round, then the third. I kept telling myself I'd head home soon, but the night stretched out. By the time the bar closed, I felt buzzed and warm, not ready for it to end. When he suggested we head back to his place, I didn't think twice. It wasn't far, just a short walk through quiet streets. His apartment was neat, almost too neat, like something out of a furniture catalog. No clutter, no mess, just clean surfaces and soft lighting. He poured more drinks, put on music, and we sat close on the couch. The rest of the night blurred into hazy pieces. Talking, laughing, the music running out, the two of us eventually ending up in his bed. Nothing about it felt dangerous in the moment. I remember thinking how surprisingly comfortable I felt for a first date. I woke up sometime in the morning, my head heavy, mouth dry. The sunlight was peeking through blinds, casting thin lines across the room. For a moment, I just lay there, stretching, trying to figure out where I was. Then I sat up. And that's when I saw them. Polaroids, dozens of them. They were spread out across the floor, circling the bed like some kind of ritual. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I was going to throw up. Every single photo was of me. Sleeping. Different angles, some close to my face, some zoomed out, some from above. In every single one, my eyes were closed, my body twisted under the sheets, my mouth slightly open. The kind of photos that only exist if someone is right there, watching. The circle wasn't random either. They were placed carefully, evenly spaced, like he'd taken time to arrange them around me while I slept. My breath caught in my throat, and it froze. For a second, I didn't even want to move in case there were more I hadn't seen. I looked at the nightstand. The Polaroid camera sat there like a trophy with a few undeveloped films next to it. My mind spun. How many did he take? How long was he standing over me, snapping pictures, arranging them? I glanced at the clock on his dresser. 8:17 a.m. The city outside was alive already, but in that room it felt like I was trapped inside something unreal. I slipped out of the bed slowly, careful not to disturb the circle. My legs felt shaky as I stepped between the photos, trying not to touch them. Each one I looked down at made my chest tighten more. In some, my face looked peaceful. In others, the angle made it look twisted, almost grotesque, like he'd been experimenting with how close he could get without waking me. I grabbed my clothes from the chair in the corner, pulling them on as quietly as I could. Every creak of the floor felt like an alarm going off. I didn't know if he was still asleep in the other room or if he was watching me even then. Once I was dressed, I glanced back at the bed. The circle of Polaroids looked worse from the doorway, like some trap I'd been lying in all night without realizing it. My phone was on the dresser, plugged into his charger. I snatched it, shoved it into my bag, and forced myself to walk, not run, to the front door. The hallway outside was silent. My hands shook so badly it took me 2 tries to unlock the door. When I finally got outside, the air hit me like I'd been underwater too long. I walked fast, then faster, until I was almost running down the block. When I finally stopped, I pulled out my phone. No new messages. No calls. Just my reflection on the black screen, pale and drained. I couldn't stop replaying the image of those photos spread out around me. The thought that I'd been completely unaware while he moved around me, camera in hand, deciding how to frame me. I didn't know if he took the photos just for himself or if he shared them, collected them, maybe had circles of other women's faces lined up in the same way. I never texted him. Never looked for his profile again. I blocked his number, deleted the app, and told no one. But sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear I see flashes in the dark. And I wonder how many Polaroids of me are out there that I'll never see. I thought their dates were supposed to be the easy ones. The first 2 are all about breaking the ice, figuring out if the other person is a total weirdo, seeing if there's a spark. By the third one, you should at least know whether you want to keep going. That's what I told myself anyway. We met off the app a couple weeks before. First date was coffee, second was a walk in the park with ice cream. Both were fine, nothing wild. She was a little eccentric, but I kind of liked that. She talked fast, laughed at her own jokes, and always had some random story that sounded half true, half made up. I figured it was just part of her charm. So when she said, "Come over, I want you to meet my family," I thought, okay, that's fast, but maybe she's just close to them. I pictured parents in cardigans, maybe a brother who'd grill me with questions, some awkward dinner I could survive with enough politeness. I told myself it was a good sign. Her house was on a quiet street lined with trees, the kind of place where the curtains are always drawn and the mailboxes look old. I parked out front, checked myself in the rearview mirror, and walked up the path. The porch light was already on, even though it wasn't dark yet. She opened the door with a big smile and hugged me like we'd known each other longer than we had. Inside smelled like candles and something cooking. She told me dinner was ready and led me down the hall. The dining room hit me like a punch. The table was set for 6. Plates, glasses, silverware, and around it sat her family. Except they weren't people. They were mannequins. Full-sized, dressed in clothes like they'd just walked out of a department store. One in a suit, one in a floral dress, another in a cardigan. Wigs carefully placed on their heads. Faces blank but angled toward the table like they were ready to eat. For a second I thought it was a joke. Some elaborate prank to test how I'd react. I almost laughed, waiting for her to crack a smile. But she didn't. She pulled out a chair for me and told me to sit, like everything was completely normal. My heart was pounding, but I didn't want to look rude, so I sat. The mannequins loomed around me motionless. She sat down across from me, between two of them, and started serving food onto their plates as if they were real people. She told me the man in the suit was her dad. The one in the cardigan was her mom. The younger one in a hoodie was her brother. She introduced them all by name, gesturing like I should remember. Then she looked at me expectantly, waiting. I realized she wanted me to greet them, to talk to them. So I did. My voice cracked as I said hello to her dad, then her mom. I felt insane. Every time I glanced at their lifeless faces, my skin crawled. But she was watching me with wide, eager eyes, nodding like I was doing great. She asked her dad to tell a story about when she was little, then laughed as if she actually heard him reply. She leaned toward her mom, asking what she thought of me. Then she turned to me and said her mom liked me. I forced a smile, stabbing at the food on my plate, my appetite completely gone. The longer I sat there, the more disturbing it became. She would pause in conversations like she was listening to answers that weren't there. She'd laugh at invisible jokes, nod at silent approval. The mannequins stared back with empty expressions, their stiff hands resting near forks they'd never touch. I couldn't stop staring at the hoodie mannequin, the one she called her brother. Its head was tilted just enough that the shadow from the overhead light made it look almost alive. I kept expecting it to move. At one point, she leaned across the table and whispered that her family was shy, but they'd warm up to me if I was patient. Then she poured more wine into their glasses, careful not to spill. I wanted to leave so badly, but I didn't know how. Standing up and walking out felt dangerous in some weird way, like breaking an unspoken rule. My hands were sweating as I held my fork, pretending to eat. She asked me what I thought of them. My throat tightened. I said they seemed nice. She smiled so big it made my stomach twist. Dinner dragged on forever. She kept filling the silence with one-sided conversations, answering for them, making inside jokes with herself. I nodded, smiled, played along. All my brain screamed at me to get out. When it was finally over, she collected the plates, thanking her family for being welcoming. She kissed the mannequin in the cardigan on the cheek before standing up. I swear I saw a smear of her lipstick left behind. She walked me to the door, hugging me again, thanking me for coming. Her eyes were bright, almost manic, like the night had been perfect. When I stepped outside, the air felt different, cold, sharp. I walked fast to my car, refusing to look back at the house. The drive home was a blur. My phone buzzed with a message from her before I even pulled into my driveway. She said her family really liked me, that they were excited to see me again. I blocked her number, deleted the app. But even now, I can't get that dining room out of my head. The mannequin sitting silently, dressed up like real people, her voice filling the air, pretending they spoke back. And the way she smiled at me like I'd passed some test. The first time someone made me a playlist after a date, I thought it was cute. It felt old school, like burning a CD back when people still did that. An earnest little ritual instead of another swipe right line. We'd only been out once, a slow coffee that turned into a walk along the river. He messaged me the next morning, made something just for you. I smiled, small, ridiculous, and clicked the link. It wasn't anything dramatic, a mix of indie tracks, a couple of chill electronic pieces, a few throwbacks I already liked. The sequencing was oddly tasteful. You could tell he put thought into it. I listened on the bus, headphones on, folding the city into the music and telling myself I liked that someone bothered. The first weird thing didn't happen until that night. I was brushing my teeth. The bathroom steamy, the buzzing of the toothbrush filling the small space. I had the playlist on again, just for background, and the next track began. Only it wasn't a song. It was my voice. For a second I thought the toothpaste had numbed my brain. Maybe I'd left a voice memo on my phone, and the app had pulled it into the playlist by some fluke. I glanced at the screen. The track name was blank, only a dash, but the waveform moved like any audio file. And the words came unmistakable, me laughing with my friend that afternoon, the cadence of my sentences, the tiny sarcasm I use when I don't want things to sound too serious. Even the background noise, the tap of footsteps on the pavement, a bust hiss, was there. My toothbrush clattered into the sink. I yanked the headphones out, the room suddenly too loud, my ears ringing with my own voice. I replayed the track, hands trembling. Same intimacy, same timbre, every pause and inflection identical to what I remembered saying. I told myself it was a glitch. Maybe the streaming service had scraped something. Maybe I'd accidentally uploaded a memo. But I hadn't. My phone didn't show any new files. I texted him a neutral, stupidly casual message. Hey, neat mix. And stared at the screen until the reply dot vanished. Just a smiley face. The next morning I tested it. This time I listened during my commute with a mixture of curiosity and a small hot panic. The first few tracks were normal. Then another blank title track. Me again, a private joke in the lunchroom with a coworker, the exact thing I'd said only hours before. I pictured my phone sitting in my bag as I walked across the office, pictured the tight little pouch zipped up. No one could have been near the mic. The recording had the clatter of cutlery, the shuffle of chairs. It sounded like someone had been sitting at my table listening. I started doing dumb, paranoid things. I left my phone on the counter and paced the apartment. I checked for apps I didn't recognize, for permissions I hadn't given. I ran a quick scan. Nothing. The mic light never came on. There was no sign of being hacked. Yet my private life kept turning up in the playlist. That night, against better judgment, I pressed play again. The new track began low and slow. At first, I thought it was another conversation, but I recognized the rhythm. Me on the phone with my mother, the same complaint about a leaky sink, the exact laugh I forced at the end of that sentence. The background was my kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator, the clink of a spoon against ceramic as I said something about dinner. I felt exposed in a way I'd never been exposed before, not just recorded, but curated. Someone had taken pieces of my day and threaded them together like a private college being played back to me. The fourth time I listened, the recording was from the night, not late, deep when I should have been sleeping. I could hear the soft thud of my own blanket as I shifted, a small breath, a cough that wakes you for a second before you fall back. There were no words, just the vulnerable sound of me alive and unguarded. When the file ended, I sat very still, phone cupped in both hands like it might suddenly bite. That proved something different and worse. This wasn't remote eavesdropping. This person, this one who'd made me a cute playlist, had been in my apartment. He had been close enough to hear the fine-grained details of my life. The implication felt like a physical thing pressing against my ribs. I never texted him to accuse him. The sentence, "Are you spying on me through your playlist?" felt insane to type and somehow truer for being unsaid. Instead, I did smaller, rational things that had the panicked sheen of denial. Changed app passwords, reset permissions, updated the OS. I asked my coworker casually if she'd ever seen anything weird on the app. She shrugged, as if this problem belonged in fiction, not in her inbox. But the playlist kept growing. Each new file felt more intimate than the last, as if he were methodically working his way through the rollover moments of my life. He recorded me at the bus stop, talking to a stranger about directions. He recorded me on the phone with my sister, the one I confided in about stupid private fears. He pulled in ambient noise with obsessive care, the rattle of the radiator, the squeak of my bedroom window, details someone only hears if they're looking for them. I slept with the lights on for nights. I checked locks until the metal grew warm under my fingers. I told myself the worst, that he'd installed something in my apartment so small I'd never noticed, or that he'd been the person on the other side of my front door while I made lunch. I thought about calling the police and imagined them coming in polite, bureaucratic files and shrugging, because there was no body, no weapon, only files in an ecosystem owned by a massive, indifferent company. The playlist was ephemeral and yet painfully permanent in my head. The last straw came not in audio, but in the app itself. I woke to a notification at 2 in the morning. New song added to playlist. My phone sat on the windowsill like an island of warmth against the cold. For a second, I pretended I would open it and prove. Proved what? I didn't know. Instead, I put my palm over the screen and I felt my own pulse bloom under my skin like a small drum. My phone still stays in the drawer. I still use playlists sometimes, but I'd never allow anyone to make one for me after a date. I tell myself I did everything right, changed locks, deleted accounts, called friends. But there is this knowledge now, knobby and constant. Someone compiled a record of my life and pressed play. Somewhere quietly and without my consent, the playlist is still growing. The whole thing started so normal, I almost forget how it went sideways. Just a regular match on a Tuesday night when I was bored on my couch, half swiping, half watching TV. Her profile was simple, a couple selfies, one with a dog, one caption about loving bad coffee. Nothing glamorous, nothing try hard. She looked normal, talked normal, and didn't have any weird vibes in the chat. By Thursday, we agreed to meet. We grabbed drinks at this quiet little bar near the train station. Nothing wild. She was chatty, laughed a lot, kept brushing her hair back in this nervous way, but otherwise it was fine. We ordered nachos to share, had a couple beers, and when it was over, we hugged goodbye, and I figured maybe I'd text her in a few days. I didn't expect anything heavy. It was one date. The next morning, I woke up to 10 notifications from her. At first, I thought maybe she was just drunk texting late at night, something needy or embarrassing. But when I opened them, my stomach dropped. Ultrasound photos. Clear as day. Black and white images with little measurements along the edges. She'd written captions underneath like, "This is your baby, and you're going to be a dad." I sat there in bed staring at them, half laughing, half panicking. We'd been on one date. One. It didn't even make sense. I hadn't been to her place, hadn't kissed her, hadn't even held her hand longer than a hug goodbye. And here she was telling me I had a child on the way. I ignored the messages. My brain told me she was just unhinged, maybe looking for attention, maybe trying to bait me into a reaction. But she didn't stop. All day, more photos. Ultrasounds from different angles. Notes about baby names. Even long messages about how we needed to figure out a plan. By day 2, she started tagging me in posts. Private accounts with baby-related quotes, photos of strollers, stuff about new beginnings. My name was plastered in the comments. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I blocked her number. Blocked her on the app. I thought that would be the end of it. But a week later, I got a random message from some guy I didn't know. He said, "Hey, she's doing it to you too," and attached a screenshot. Same girl. Same ultrasound photos. Same captions. Only this time she was telling him he was the father. My blood went cold. I messaged back, and we compared screenshots. Exact same photos, word for word messages. He'd only met her once too. Different bar, different story, same outcome. One of my friends had actually believed her for a while. He'd gone along with it, tried to be supportive until he realized the timeline didn't add up. That's when he backed off and she turned on him, spamming him with angry messages until he blocked her. The group of us started piecing it together. She'd been recycling the same set of ultrasound images for months, maybe years. Dozens of men caught in the same loop, all convinced, at least for a little while, that they were the father. The scariest part wasn't the photos themselves. It was how specific she got. She remembered details from your conversations and used them in her messages. One guy said she talked about how the baby kicked during the game because she knew he liked football. Another said she sent him baby name suggestions based on his favorite band. She customized the live for every single person, layering it until it felt real. I went back through my messages with her from before the date. Nothing stood out. She'd seemed normal. Just another girl off the app. I never would have guessed she had a whole folder of ultrasound images ready to go, waiting to trap the next person. Weeks later, I was at the grocery store when I saw her. She was in the self-checkout, hair tied back, holding a basket. She looked totally ordinary. Not crazy, not dangerous, just like anyone else. She glanced at me and smiled like nothing had ever happened. Like she didn't know I'd spent weeks digging through my phone, deleting her messages, comparing notes with strangers she'd trick. I froze. Didn't wave, didn't nod. Just left without buying anything. My chest was tight the whole drive home. That night, one of the guys from the group chat sent another screenshot. A new man had posted on social media, bragging about being a dad, showing the exact same ultrasound photo I'd gotten weeks before. She was still at it, and she wasn't going to stop. One of the guys suggested reporting her to the police. But what would we even say? She sent me ultrasound photos and lied about being pregnant. That wasn't illegal. Creepy, manipulative, yes, but not criminal. Another suggested reaching out to the app, but we all knew how that would go. She'd just make another profile with different selfies, and the cycle would continue. Money never came up. She never asked me for anything material. It wasn't about catfishing for cash or sympathy. It was something stranger. She wanted control. Wanted to plant herself inside your life so deeply that for a moment, even if just a moment, you thought your future belonged to her. And the truth is, even though I know it's fake, a part of me still feels a phantom weight when I see those photos. A part of me remembers the caption she wrote. This is your baby. You're going to be a dad. Like a curse, like she branded those words into me. And no matter how far I run, I'll never shake them off. Because somewhere out there right now, she's sending those same photos to someone else. And he's staring at them the way I once did. Half laughing, half panicking, wondering if maybe, just maybe, his life has changed forever. And that's when I realized she doesn't need me anymore. I was just another name on her list. But she'll never stop. The weirdest thing anyone's ever done to me on a date didn't start weird. It started almost boring. I matched with her on a Sunday night. She had a goofy smile in her pictures, a couple photos of her at restaurants, one with a plate of nachos the size of her head. Her bio just said something about loving cheese. I thought it was a dumb joke, the kind of throwaway line people put to fill space. We texted for a few days, nothing special, and then set up a dinner. She wanted to pick the spot, so I said sure. The place she chose was small, dim, with wooden tables and mismatched chairs. The kind of restaurant that smelled like melted butter as soon as you walked in. Every table had a cheese board on it, like actual cheese boards already set up, not even as appetizers. She waved when I walked in, already sitting with a glass of wine. She looked normal enough, maybe a little jittery, like she'd had too much caffeine, but I brushed it off. The first half of dinner was fine. She talked a lot, mostly about food. Cheese came up more than I expected. Not just casual liking. Full rants about different types, where they came from, which ones people didn't respect enough. I laughed at first, thinking it was just her thing, but the way she kept circling back to it made me uneasy. When the waiter came, she ordered something called a melted wheel special for two. I didn't know what that meant, but I nodded along. Minutes later, they brought a massive wheel of cheese hollowed in the middle, bubbling like lava. She clapped her hands like it was a birthday cake. We dipped bread into it, ate a little, kept talking. She stared at me a lot while I chewed, like she was waiting for me to say something profound about it. I just said it was good. She didn't look satisfied. Halfway through, she pulled out her phone and started showing me pictures of cheese from her camera roll. Not memes, not recipes. Just blocks of cheese she'd bought, cheese from farmers markets, cheese sitting in her fridge. I nodded, scrolling through them with her, trying not to look uncomfortable. It was when dessert came that things tipped over. The waiter brought tiramisu, but she waved it away and asked if they had more cheese instead. When they didn't, she frowned like she'd just been insulted. She leaned in, eyes wide, and asked me what my favorite cheese was. I froze. I couldn't even think of an answer beyond mozzarella, but when I said that, she looked offended, like genuinely offended, like I just insulted her family. I tried to laugh it off, but her face didn't change. She reached into her bag, pulled something out, and set it on the table. A wrapped block of cheddar. I stared at it, then at her. She slid it toward me like an ultimatum. I didn't know what to do, so I picked it up, unwrapped it a little, took a bite just to humor her. She clapped her hands again, beaming like I'd passed some test. I felt ridiculous chewing plain cheddar in a restaurant, but at least she seemed happy again. We paid, walked outside, and she asked if I wanted to come back to her place. I hesitated, but she was insistent. I figured one drink and then I'd leave. Her apartment was small and cluttered, but not dirty, except for the fridge. She opened it to grab us drinks. I swear it was wall-to-wall cheese. Every shelf, every drawer, stacked with different blocks, wheels, slices, all labeled. Some were half-wrapped in paper, some vacuum-sealed. Some looked ancient. The smell hit me like a punch. I laughed nervously, saying something about her being committed. She didn't laugh. She handed me a beer, sat me on the couch, and put on music. At first, it felt normal again. We talked, sipped our drinks, the TV playing low in the background. Then she excused herself, disappeared into the kitchen. I heard drawers opening, the knife scraping. When she came back, she was holding a plate piled with cheese slices, different kinds, stacked high. She set it on the coffee table and just stared at me. I picked one up, ate it slowly, trying to act casual. She watched every bite. Then she grabbed a handful herself, but instead of eating, she threw it at me. Cold slices smacked against my chest, sticking slightly before falling into my lap. I sat frozen. She laughed, grabbed more, and pelted me again. Gouda, Swiss cheddar flying at my face while she laughed harder and harder. I stood up, trying to calm her, but she lunged forward with the plate, shoving handfuls of cheese at me, smearing it on my shirt, my arms. Her laughter turned sharp, almost manic, echoing off the walls. I backed toward the door, but she'd followed, pressing slices into my jacket pockets, crumbling bits into my hair. The smell of dairy was overwhelming, sticky and sour. I finally pushed past her, yanked the door open, and stumbled into the hall. She stood in the doorway, cheese still in her hands, laughing so hard she bent over. I didn't stop moving until I was in my car. My clothes smelled like a deli counter. My pockets were stuffed with shredded mozzarella. When I got home, I dumped everything in the trash, showered twice, and sat in silence. My phone buzzed with notifications, photos of cheese, selfies of her holding it up, messages about how we were meant for each other. I blocked her everywhere. But even now, sometimes I open my fridge and hesitate before reaching for the cheese drawer. Some dates start off so normal that the ending almost feels impossible, like there's no way you could have seen it coming. That's how this one felt. We matched on a Thursday night. She wasn't the type to write paragraphs, just short replies, but she was quick to answer and seemed excited. By Saturday, she suggested we meet up. I figured why not? We got coffee first. It was fine. She was funny in a scattered kind of way, bouncing from topic to topic like she was afraid silence might suffocate her. I noticed she kept looking at me for longer than usual, like she was studying my face. Not in a rude way, more like she was memorizing it. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe she was just nervous. By the end, she asked if I wanted to come by her place to watch a movie. It felt a little fast, but she was insistent. There was this gleam in her eyes, like she'd already decided for me. Against my better judgment, I didn't see a reason to say no. Her apartment was on the third floor of a quiet building. She unlocked the door, swung it open, and the first thing that hit me wasn't the smell of the layout. It was the walls. Everywhere I looked, there were photos. At first, I thought they were stock prints, the kind of generic decor you buy at IKEA. But no, these were framed photographs. Dozens of them. And in every single one, the man in the photo looked almost exactly like me. Same haircut, same build, same jawline, even the same colon. I noticed it right away, sharp and familiar, threading the air. For a split second, I thought she'd hacked my socials and printed out my pictures. But when I looked closer, it wasn't me. The details were slightly off. The nose a little different, the eyes darker. The clothes were the kind of things I wore, same brand of sneakers, same type of shirt, but the face wasn't mine, just close enough to make my stomach twist. She walked past me like nothing was weird, tossed her keys in a bowl, and told me to make myself comfortable. I just stood there staring at the photos. Whole walls filled with this guy, smiling in parks, sitting at a restaurant table, holding a dog. Some were candid, some looked posed. I sat on the couch trying to act normal, but it wasn't just the photos. The shelves were stacked with things too. Cologne bottles, the exact brand I wore, a jacket by the door, the same cut as mine, shoes lined neatly by the rug, the same style I had at home. It was like the apartment was staged to mirror my life. She came back with drinks, handed me one, and sat close. Too close. She said she couldn't believe how perfect it was, that she only swiped right because I looked like him. She called me a perfect match. The words made my skin crawl. I asked who he was, trying to sound casual. She brushed it off, saying it didn't matter, that he wasn't around anymore. She wouldn't explain further. Just smiled at me like I'd walked into some role I didn't know I'd signed up for. The movie started, but I couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting to the walls, the photos staring back. One of them was directly across from the couch, a shot of him with his arm around her, both smiling. Her hair was a little shorter in that one. My stomach sank when I realized it wasn't old. It couldn't have been. Halfway through the movie, she leaned her head on my shoulder. I stiffened, staring at the photo across from us. Her perfume mixed with the cologne around the room, thick in the air. It felt suffocating. She whispered that she'd been waiting for someone like me. That most guys didn't measure up, but I was different. She squeezed my arm tighter, nails pressing into my skin like tiny knives. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing space. The hall was lined with even more photos, not just of him, but her with him. Trips, dinners, random moments. It was a timeline I didn't belong in. In the bathroom, the mirror reflected a framed picture behind me. Him again, shirtless this time, flexing like some personal trophy. I turned away, heart pounding. When I came out, she was standing there in the hall, smiling, not moving, just waiting for me. She asked if I felt comfortable, if I felt at home. The way she said it made my throat go dry. I mumbled something about needing to get up early. She frowned, but didn't argue. She walked me to the door, brushing her fingers against my arm, lingering too long. As I stepped into the hall, she said the words I still hear sometimes at night, that she'd never let me go. I didn't look back. I walked fast down the stairs, out the building, into the cold air. My hands were shaking as I unlocked my car. The whole drive home, I kept smelling the cologne. I don't know if it was hers or mine, or if it had just seeped into me from sitting in that room surrounded by him. Later, I tried to tell myself I'd imagined it. That maybe it wasn't as bad as it felt. People keep photos. People have exes. Maybe she just hadn't redecorated. Maybe she just had a type. But every excuse felt thinner the more I replayed the details. The way she'd studied my face at the cafe. The way her apartment wasn't just decorated, it was curated. Built to echo someone else's life. A week later, I got a package, no return address. Inside was a framed photo. Me. But it wasn't one I'd ever taken. The whole reason I even downloaded the app was because I was bored. That's it. Not some deep story about wanting love. Not a friend pushing me into it. Just boredom. I wasn't expecting anything more than small talk and maybe a drink with someone who looked different in real life. But then I matched with her. Her profile wasn't even flashy. Just 3 pictures, one of her laughing at a cafe table, one with her hair tied back in the sun, and one of her holding a glass of wine. Her bio was short too. Just said something about liking old movies and late breakfasts. She didn't feel like the type that had rehearsed her whole personality for an app. Our first date was simple. A coffee shop near the bus station. She showed up in a denim jacket, hair loose, and when she smiled, it was like we already knew each other. The conversation flowed so easily it freaked me out a little. I'm used to awkward silences, nervous fidgeting. She didn't have any of that. It was like she'd been waiting for me specifically. Second date, we got dinner at a diner with sticky boots and fries that tasted like grease. I swear I'd never laughed that much over stupid things in my life. The way she told stories like she was pulling me right into them made the whole world shrink down to just the 2 of us in that booth. Third date, we walked along the river. She pointed at houses she claimed she wanted to live in someday, described how she'd decorate the windows, what kind of plants she'd put in the yard. At one point, she grabbed my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. Not forced, not awkward, just easy. So when we set the 4th date, I was excited in a way I hadn't been in years. We picked this Italian restaurant she loved, according to her. Said she went there with friends all the time, swore the bread was addictive. I got there early. Sat at a table by the window, fidgeted with the menu. I kept looking at the door, expecting her to walk in with that same denim jacket, maybe her hair pulled back this time. The waiter came by, asked if I was waiting on someone. I said yes, gave him her name, described her. The second I did, something shifted in his face. His eyebrows drew together and he gave me this long look, like he was deciding whether or not to say something. Then he said she'd been dead for 5 years. I laughed at first, thought it was some bizarre joke, but he didn't laugh. He leaned in a little and said it again, quieter this time. Dead. 5 years. My skin went cold. I asked him what the hell he was talking about. He told me her family used to come there all the time, that she died in an accident, that her photo was even on a memorial board near the front. I thought he was messing with me, trying to scare off a stranger. But when he walked away, I got up and checked. And there she was. Same smile, same hair, same denim jacket. A photo tacked up with a handful of others, candles drawn around the border. The date under her name was 5 years ago. I stood there staring until another waiter looked at me funny. My hands were shaking when I sat back down. I texted her. No reply. Called straight to voicemail. I scrolled back through our messages, looking for something, anything, that would explain it. The conversations were still there. The plans we'd made, the jokes she'd sent me, the pictures of coffee cups and sunsets. But suddenly they didn't feel real anymore. They felt like smoke. I thought about the 3 dates we'd had, the coffee shop, the diner, the walk by the river. I replayed them in my head, trying to remember if anyone else had actually seen her. The barista on the first date. Has she looked at both of us or just me? At the diner, did the waitress take both of our orders or just mine? On the river walk, did anyone pass us and glance at us like a couple? The more I thought about it, the less sure I was. I left the restaurant without eating, walked fast back to my car, heart thudding, staring at my phone like it might suddenly light up with her name. It didn't. That night, I scrolled through her profile again. Gone, like it never existed. My chats with her on the app. Blank. Just my words sitting there alone, no replies. But my phone gallery was still full of little things I'd saved. Screenshots of her messages. A picture she'd sent of her coffee cup on that first date. The one of her holding wine. I went back to the memorial photo I'd seen at the restaurant, Googled her name, and it was there too. Obituary page, full of old comments from friends and family. Stories about her laugh, her love for late breakfasts, her thing for old movies. The exact same details she'd told me. I didn't sleep that night, or the night after. And the part I can't shake isn't just that she's gone. It's that I still remember the warmth of her hand in mine by the river. It didn't feel like nothing. It felt real. The first date wasn't bad, and that's the thing that bothers me the most when I think back on it. It was actually decent. We met at a burger spot downtown, sat in a booth with ketchup stains on the menu, and he was normal. He laughed at the right times, didn't talk too much about himself, asked me questions, paid for the food without making it weird. If anything, he came across a little shy, the kind of shy you almost find sweet. So when he asked if I wanted to see him again, I said yes. The second date was at a coffee shop on a Sunday afternoon. It wasn't crowded, just a few people on laptops, an older couple sharing a muffin. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table at a window with his phone face up. He smiled when I sat down, slid the drink menu toward me, and it felt easy. We talked for a while, work, music, how much he hated the cold weather. At one point he picked up his phone and said he wanted to show me something funny. I leaned in, expecting a meme or some dumb video. But he opened his gallery. The first image was me. Not from that day. Not from the burger place. A photo of me walking down a street in broad daylight. My jacket, my bag slung across my shoulder, my face turned to the side, as if I didn't know anyone was watching. I froze. He swiped. Another photo. Me sitting on a bus, earbuds in, staring at the window. Another. Me in the grocery store reaching for something on the top shelf. One of me at the gym, hair tied back, face red and concentrated. Another outside my apartment door with my keys in my hand. He kept swiping until the stack of images blurred. Different days, different outfits, some close enough to make my skin crawl, some blurry, like someone had been too nervous to hold the camera steady. One picture was me at a bus stop the week before. The same day, I'd missed the first bus and cursed under my breath. The photo caught the tilt of my head when I checked my phone. Another was me on a rainy morning, umbrella up, the hood of my jacket soaked at the shoulders. These weren't photos from our dates. They were from before, weeks, maybe months before. He had been watching me. I managed to ask where he got them. My voice felt far away, small. He smiled like it was the most normal thing in the world and said, like a confession, like something romantic, that he'd been watching for a while, that when I finally showed up on the app, it felt like fate. He said he already knew we'd be perfect together. I laughed, a sound that didn't reach my eyes, pretended to scroll through a couple of the images so I wouldn't look like I was going to vomit. Then I told him I needed the bathroom. The cafe bathroom was at the back. I locked the door and stared at myself in the mirror, pale face, breaths too quick. My phone was in my bag at the table. He had it. He had all the photos. All of them. I counted the ways to be brave and found none that felt viable. I counted the ways to leave and felt cowardly for even considering it. When I came back, he was still there, coffee cooling in front of him, like nothing had happened. My bag remained where I'd left it. He offered a crooked smile, like he'd been waiting on me to return. I told him I had to get home early. He looked disappointed but didn't argue. He walked me outside, hugged me goodbye, and whispered, too close to my ear, that he had more to show me next time. On the walk home, my shoulders were rigid. I kept checking over them, though the street was empty. I locked my door with fingers that trembled and pulled every curtain closed. The apartment felt suddenly smaller, as if the walls themselves might peek inside. I scrolled our messages later like someone reading through a stranger's diary, noticing how much he'd already known even before we'd been out. My bus wrote, "The grocery on the corner of my usual order." At the time, I thought he was perceptive. Now it read like a map he'd already drawn. I didn't block him right away. Part of me felt ridiculous doing that, like making a scene would confirm something he hadn't yet done. Show up uninvited, cross the boundary I knew he'd already skirted. For a few days, I hovered in that small, awful indecision, ignoring his texts while my stomach tightened with each new message. He kept sending pictures. Not selfies, not memes. Photos of me. Leaving work, grabbing mail, unlocking my bike, walking down an alley I take when it rains. The one that broke me was different in tone than the rest. It arrived at night when I was almost asleep, an image taken through the gap in my blinds. Curtains drawn, lamp on, my body curled under the blanket. The glow of the lamp picked up the contour of my cheek. I could see the small freckle near my jaw. I could see my hand, loose and relaxed, resting on the duvet. I blocked him that night. I deleted the app. I changed my profile picture to a landscape and set my account to invisible. I called a friend and had her stay over for a week. I moved my shoes to the back of the closet and checked my door deadbolt twice before bed. None of it helped the way my brain rewired itself. Every reflective surface felt suspect. Every shadow at the corner of my street felt like a lens. Weeks later, I threw out my trash late at night and found my heart kick in at the sound of a camera shutter. I started varying my routes without telling anyone why. I left my phone face down, then turned it off, then carried it in my coat pocket as if a dead slab of glass could keep me safe. I stopped taking the midday bus. I took the longer way that required more walking and more daylight. Sometimes I caught myself imagining his smile across a cafe table and felt bile rise. How had I been fooled by normal? How did normal lead to the invasion of my life? I like to say I reported him. I considered it. I thought about the photos and how they might be illegal, how what he did must be stalking. But the thought of giving the police my timeline, of telling them I had been photographed at the bus stop or in the grocery store, and that someone had come into my cafe with a phone full of me, felt absurd in its intimacy. Would they take it seriously? Would this become one more tiny paper trail of my fear, cataloged and closed? I held onto that uncertainty like a second skin, and it made me small. Sometimes in the grocery aisle, I see someone lift a phone to their face in a way that mirrors the angle I first recognized, and my breath catches. I cross to the other side of the store. Sometimes late at night, I dream I'm frozen mid-step while a flash goes off and a smiling man looks at his screen. I wake up and count my limbs like proof of being alive. The worst part is how ordinary it all began. A burger place, a shy laugh, a polite man who asked about my week. The truth that bothered me more than the photographs themselves was that the behavior which made me trust him, his attentiveness, his seeming thoughtfulness, was the same pattern he used to learn me, to be ready for the moment he could put a camera to me and call it fate. That normalcy is the thing I can't unsee. I don't go on dates much anymore. My profile is gone, but I still feel hunted. Every time I pass a cafe window, I find myself checking my reflection with a flinch, expecting the ghost of that gallery to be somewhere on the other side. I wonder if he still takes pictures. I wonder how many other people sit opposite strangers who think they're charming and keep a collection of other people's faces on their phones like a museum of permissionless souvenirs. And somewhere, maybe, someone else is leaning across a table, smiling and swiping through a stack of images of a person who thinks they're just having coffee. The first red flag should have been the way she kept holding her phone. Not just normal holding, like checking messages or scrolling. She had it up, tilted, pointed just enough toward me that it felt deliberate. But it was our first date, and I didn't want to seem paranoid. People are always glued to their phones these days, right? We met at a ramen place she picked. She was already there when I walked in, phone propped against a water glass like she'd been filming herself waiting. She smiled, waved me over, and hit record again without even trying to hide it. At first, I thought she was vlogging. Influencers film their food all the time, so I let it go. She kept the camera rolling while I sat down, while we ordered, while we talked. Every slurp of noodles, every laugh, every pause. It was all recorded. I tried to joke about it. Asked if she ever put her phone down, but she just grinned and said she liked capturing moments. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe she was just quirky. The date itself went fine. We ate, we talked, we walked a little after, then hugged goodbye. I went home thinking it wasn't terrible, maybe worth a second shot. 2 nights later, I was on YouTube. I wasn't even looking for her. I was watching something completely random when her face popped up in the sidebar. The title of the video made my stomach flip. Dating a Psychopath, Episode 19. I clicked. It was me. Sitting at the Raymond place, laughing, talking, chewing. Except the way she edited it made me look insane. Every time I looked away, she froze the frame and zoomed in with creepy music. Every time I touched my hair or scratched my nose, she slowed it down, replayed it, added captions like, "Look at this tick." She cut my words into pieces. Stuff I'd said casually about work, about family, was spliced out of order, chopped up until it sounded like I was ranting. She overlaid dramatic music, text on screen like, "He lies. He manipulates. He thinks I don't notice." The comment section was full of strangers tearing me apart. Red flags all over this guy. Creepiest dude I've ever seen. I recognize that restaurant. I think I've seen him around here. This is the type of guy who follows you home. My chest tightened. Dozens of people were speculating about me, making up stories, treating me like a character in a show. One comment even guessed my workplace based on the logo on my hoodie. Someone else said my last name, like they'd pieced it together from somewhere. I felt sick. I clicked her channel. She had dozens of these videos. Each one was a different episode, each about a different guy. Titles like "When They Pretend to Care" and "First Date with a Narcissist." The thumbnails were always blurry screenshots of some man looking awkward or mid-bite. She'd had thousands of subscribers. And there I was, the newest episode. My face plastered everywhere, my voice twisted into something it wasn't. That night, my phone started buzzing. Messages from unknown numbers. Some were insults. Some were threats. One just said, "We know where you live." I locked my doors, closed my blinds, sat in the dark staring at my screen. My own face stared back, frozen in unflattering frames, looped with sinister music. The worst part was the way she narrated. Calm, sweet, convincing. She said I gave her dangerous vibes, that she feared for her safety, that she wanted to warn other women. She told them I leaned too close, that I pressured her to stay longer, that my smile looked forced. None of it was true, but the edits made it feel real. I didn't know what to do. Reporting the video felt pointless. It had already spread. People downloaded it, reposted clips, made memes out of my face. I saw myself on Twitter the next morning, captioned with jokes about psycho Tinder dates. At work, I caught my coworkers whispering. Someone had already seen it. I tried texting her, but my messages wouldn't go through. Blocked. I went back to her channel, scrolling through old uploads. The same pattern over and over. Different men, different restaurants, same treatment. All of them made to look unhinged. Some had thousands of comments, full of people mocking them, sharing warnings in their city. I wondered how many of those guys had their lives blown up because of her. How many were dealing with strangers harassing them, showing up at their jobs, spreading rumors. By the end of the week, people had found my address. I came home one night to find a note taped to my door, "Stay away from women." I barely slept. Every sound outside made me jump. Every buzz in my phone felt like a threat. Her video of me kept climbing in views. 10,000, 20,000. People commenting things like "classic manipulator" and "you can see the predator in his eyes." They dissected every movement I made, convinced themselves it proved her right. I stopped leaving my apartment, called in sick to work, sat on my couch scrolling through the mess, watching strangers turn me into something I wasn't. And the thing that keeps me awake isn't just that she ruined me. It's that I was episode 19. Which means there were 18 before me. And there will be more after. I wasn't looking for trouble when I matched with him. He seemed normal enough. Basic profile, no weird prompts, just pictures with friends and one of him at a concert. First date was harmless. Drinks, laughs, a walk afterward. By the third, he met my roommate in passing and even offered to help carry groceries. Nothing about him screamed creepy. In fact, the thing that made him dangerous was how ordinary he was. Then one night I couldn't sleep. I was scrolling at 2 a.m., bouncing between apps when I landed on a thread someone had linked in a group chat. An online forum, messy homepage, usernames that looked like someone had typed with their elbow. Most of it read like trash talk and stale memes, so I almost closed it. Then my eye snagged on a board title, Field Reports. I clicked. The post started out doubly specific: what someone wore, what they drank, whether they left a tip. It looked like a crowdsourced playbook for seduction, or worse, hunting. At first I thought, gross, misogynistic, move on. But the next thread was a list of profiles with screenshots, and a stack of posts full of names and short write-ups. Curiosity kept me there. It was a mistake I felt in my gut the second I saw his username. He used the same handle for his playlists and old blog. I'd recognized it before, and seeing it on that ragged page stopped me cold. My thumb hovered before I tapped his name like the wrong move might startle someone in another room. The page loaded, and there it was, a post with my name at the top. Bolded. Precise. He'd written a score minus 7/10, like it was a product review. Below it, a blow-by-blow, where we'd met, the exact joke I made about the music being too loud, the beer I'd ordered. He cataloged the second date, too. My jacket, the barstool I chose, the way I tucked my hair behind my ear when I got nervous. He even referenced my roommate as backup material. Reading it, I felt exposed in a way that made me want to crawl into the floor. He didn't stop with surface notes. He documented private things, tiny habits I didn't even realize were noticeable. How I fidgeted with the ring on my thumb when I was anxious, the exact pitch of my laugh when I heard a joke I liked. Little intimacy, as if he'd been sitting at my shoulder with a notepad. He wrote predictive things too. How long before I'd respond to a text, whether I'd cave and sleep over, how quickly I might fall into a routine. It was clinical, it was fetishized. He mapped me like territory. I scrolled down and realized I wasn't the only entry under his handle. There were dozens, names, cropped screenshots of dating profiles, and conversations clipped and pasted like trophies. Other users had commented on his posts, swapping tips, how to escalate, what to ignore, which neighborhoods were easier for meets. It wasn't a community of lovers, it was a market. People traded women's faces and behaviors like baseball cards. I shut my laptop and tried to breathe, but my hands shook. I stared at the blank screen and imagined him at his desk, lights low, fingers tapping out a paragraph about me as if he were summarizing a movie he'd seen. The casual, intimate details made my skin crawl because they were things only someone who'd watched closely would notice. The next day, I pretended everything was normal. I ignored his texts. He messaged like nothing had happened. Memes, casual plans, the same soft charm he'd used in person. I didn't reply. He sent a photo of a beer he thought I'd like. I deleted it without opening. The forum, however, had already run with replies. One commenter asked where I worked. Another speculated about the building I lived in. Someone said he'd seen me before and tried to place the block of the city. Each reply felt like a footstep toward my front door. I considered reporting it. I opened the police website to check what counted as stalking in my state. The legal lines blurred. Public photos taken in public spaces aren't illegal, they argued, and despite how violated I felt, the law tends to be narrower than whatever moral outrage burns in your chest. Even if it was technically a crime, would the police take an angry late-night forum screenshot and run with it? Would they understand the way my stomach dropped when I pictured strangers poring over pictures of me on their phones like it was a hobby? He kept posting. There was an update to this thread when I didn't answer. I made you mad, he wrote, calling me flaky, then smug. The thread's replies were a mixture of sympathy and tips. Apply pressure, wrote one. Make it play hard to get, but don't go cold. Another suggested showing up in person, which made my blood run cold in a way the original posts had not. The forum's tone was casual and cruel, like a book club for predation. I deleted his number. I changed my patterns. I considered legal advice and imagined the hollow bureaucracy of a call to the police that ends with a receipt number and a list of preventive steps. Change locks, vary routes, document everything. Those were sensible actions, but they felt like band-aids for an open wound. The real scar was inside me. A memory of being surveilled, of being made small by someone who thought to grade me and then post the grade for strangers' amusement. Sometimes I go back and read the forum late at night because the compulsion hasn't left me. It's a bad thing to admit, but I watch like someone looking for an animal in the bushes. There are always new posts, always the same tone. Men write about dates like their data points, exchange advice like recipes. Occasionally, a username shuts down a thread with a warning. Don't cross that line. And the others laugh it off. That tiny, rare voice of conscience is drowned quickly. I don't always tell the whole story when people ask why I stopped dating for a while. It's easier to say I was busy. Better to avoid the questions and the pity and the inevitable, well, you shouldn't have gone out with him again, that always follows. But I keep screenshots. I keep the thread tucked away like evidence of a world I don't want to believe in. And sometimes, late at night, I imagine his fingers hovering again above a keyboard, smiling as he composes another field report about the next woman he dates. Her laugh, the way she tucks hair behind an ear, whether she caves. The thought of being one of many files in some stranger's private archive is what quiets me more effectively than sleep ever could. I don't even know how to explain it without sounding insane, but I swear this actually happened. We'd only been on 2 dates. The first one was coffee at this little spot near my apartment. Harmless. She was a little intense, talked a lot, but nothing that made me think twice. The second date was dinner. An old Italian place with candles, white tablecloths, the kind of restaurant that plays Sinatra on a loop. She laughed way too loud at my dumb jokes, but I told myself people get nervous. It was fine. Not amazing, not terrible. I figured maybe I'd text her again if I was bored. That was it. 2 dates. So when I heard knocking on my apartment door late that night, I wasn't expecting her. I wasn't expecting anyone. I live alone, I don't get surprise visitors, and it was close to midnight. The knock was soft but quick, like whoever it was didn't want to wait or didn't want me to hear them for long. When I opened the door, she was standing on the other side, holding a baby. Not hers, not mine, just a baby. She looked as calm as if she popped over to borrow sugar. The baby was bundled in a thin blanket, small fists peeking out like the world was brand new. Its eyes were open and glassy, staring off at nothing. It didn't cry. It didn't fuss. It breathed in slow, perfect little pulls. The sight of it in her arms should have done something comforting, but instead my stomach dropped to my shoes. "Whose baby is that?" I asked, because obviously you asked that. She didn't look up. "It's ours," she said. I blinked. "What do you mean, ours?" She laughed softly, the same laugh she'd used on our dates. "You know we have it now. We take care of it together," she said, as if she'd been rehearsing the line for months. I felt my face go warm. "You can't just. I don't even know you that well." "That's the point," she said, pressing her cheek to the baby's forehead. "You didn't have to know. Fate did the choosing." She sounded like she was handing me something obvious, like the smallest fact in the world. I tried to get my thoughts in order. Was this some crazy social experiment? A prank? Did she steal it from somewhere? Should I call the police? I glanced at the hallway at the security camera above my front door, the building's feed that goes to the manager. If there was any evidence of where she'd come from, it would be there. My fingers itched for my phone, but I didn't move. She pulled the blanket down a fraction and said casually, "Do you think it looks more like you or me?" I wanted to laugh, but the sound clawed in my throat and died. I felt sick. "You need to tell me what this is," I said. "You can't bring a baby to someone's house in the middle of the night and..." She interjected, voice soft as cotton, eyes bright. "We're supposed to raise it. This is destiny." "Isn't that beautiful?" She said destiny like it was the punchline to a joke only she knew. The baby made a tiny coo, and she smiled like she'd just won something. I stood there, every rational exit flashing in my head, paralyzed by the absurdity of the scene. The baby's tiny fist pressed against her thumb. It was real, warm, fragile. The humanity of it made my brain split in two. One part wanted to protect it, call help. Another part wanted to slam the door and burn the stairwell behind me. "Listen," I said finally, "you can't keep it here. You can't just..." "You don't understand," she said. Her voice moved from honey to blade in a fraction. "You're already in. You came here. You let me in. We're in it together whether you like it or not." Something in the set of her shoulders made my skin crawl. I reached for my phone. She didn't move like someone who would bolt. She moved like someone who expected you to follow instructions. She stepped toward the door as if to leave, then paused, looked over her shoulder, and said very quietly, "You'll regret trying to stop this." And she left. Just like that. I stood in the doorway for a full minute, heart doing the stupid circus thing where it tries to climb out of my chest. The apartment smelled faintly of her perfume and something else. Baby powder, maybe, lingering like the proof of the night. The couch cushions still showed the imprint of where she'd sat, My hands were trembling so hard I could feel the tremor in my voice when I whispered, "What the hell?" The next morning, I discovered small things that were worse than the visit itself. On my couch, the blanket fibers where she'd tucked the baby had left a faint mound. The remote was shifted by an inch. On my kitchen counter, someone had left a used baby wipe in the trash. The camera feed in the lobby, the one the building manager keeps, showed a woman carrying something wrapped walk through the hall at 11:48 p.m., but the angle was poor and the object could have been a bag. I sat in the building office and watched the tiny square of grainy video on replay until the manager looked at me like I was unreasonable. Then the text began. At first, just one short message slipped into my phone at 2:14 a.m. "How do you want to do this?" No number I recognized, no sign off. I didn't reply. Later that day, another text longer. "You held it for a second. You looked like you could love it. Don't run when it matters." I went to the building manager again, asked about packages, about visitors. He shrugged and said there'd been a delivery a week ago, nothing odd. He didn't know the woman's name. My roommate's friend who'd come by for coffee swore she'd seen a woman in the hallway. She looked normal, she said, like an ordinary person with a baby. Which made it worse, ordinary as camouflage. When I thought it couldn't get stranger, I found a tiny card slipped under my door. "You can be part of this. Make the right choice." No return address. No signature. Just that line, printed neat and calm. I reported everything I could. Anonymous tips, the texts, the card, the video. The police came and asked questions with patient pens. They said they'd check building cameras more closely and could put my info in a log if anything else happened. They gave me a pamphlet about restraining orders, about what documentation to keep. The paperwork felt like a bandage. The thought of involving lawyers, of going downtown to file an official complaint against a woman whose only crime so far seemed to be trespassing and terrifying me, felt exhausting. All I know is how hollow the word we sounded as she left, and how small a thing can make you feel enormous with fear. His profile said he was a donor. I didn't even think twice about it. My brain went straight to blood drives, bone marrow registries, charity work, someone trying to sound noble on a dating app. He had a clean look, sharp jawline, plain t-shirt in most of his pictures. His bio was minimal, but not in a lazy way, just simple, like he didn't need to oversell himself. He seemed proud of being helpful. That was how I read it. Honestly, compared to the usual parade of men holding fish or making crass jokes, donor felt refreshing. Wholesome, even. Our first date was at a sushi place downtown. He was soft-spoken, polite, maybe a little awkward, but not in a threatening way. He held doors, asked me what rolls I liked, made sure I got the last piece of tuna. He didn't check his phone once. Most guys can't even pretend to listen, but he was locked in, nodding when I spoke, letting silences stretch without rushing to fill them. He talked a little about traveling, nothing braggy, just small anecdotes about places he'd seen. When I asked about his work, he brushed it off, said he did medical contributions and liked helping where he could. I assumed it tied back to the donor thing. By the end of the night, I thought maybe, just maybe, I found one of the rare decent ones. We texted all week. He sent me playlists, curated ones, not just random dumps. Links to articles he thought I'd like, tailored to things I'd mentioned on the date. He even asked about my work schedule so he wouldn't bother me at bad times. Thoughtful. Careful. Exactly the kind of energy I was looking for. By the second date, when he suggested cooking at his place, I said yes. His apartment was spotless. Too spotless. White walls, gray couch, sleek black table. No clutter, no random books, no knickknacks. The only personal thing I noticed was a framed certificate hanging near the kitchen. It had his name in bold letters and some official-looking insignia at the top. The words medical contributions were printed across the center. I assumed it was some recognition for blood or plasma donation. I pointed at it, said, "That's impressive." He smiled faintly but didn't elaborate, just stirred the pasta sauce like it wasn't worth talking about. The evening was easy. He cooked poured wine, asked me about my family. His shyness from the first date was still there, but softened. He listened more than he spoke, which made me feel seen in a way most men didn't bother with. I kept thinking maybe I got lucky. Maybe he's the real deal. Then he went to the bathroom. I got up to refill my water. The glass clinked against the counter as I pulled it from the cupboard. I opened the fridge without thinking, just casual, like I would at anyone's place. And my stomach dropped. The shelves weren't stocked with leftovers or juice or beer. They were lined with clear plastic bags, each one filled with dark red liquid. Blood. Rows of it. Some stacked, some hanging from little clips, like he tried to keep them organized. The light from the fridge turned them almost black, glistening under the bulb. For a split second, my brain scrambled to make sense of it. Maybe it really was from a blood bank. Maybe he stored donations before delivering them. I tried to twist it into something rational. But then I saw the labels. Names, written neatly in black marker. Each bag had a woman's name scrawled across it. Dozens of them. Different handwriting styles, but all sharp and clear. And one of them was mine. My first name written in perfect block letters, staring back at me from a bag of thick, dark blood. I froze. My grip tightened on the fridge door until my knuckles went white. My knees wobbled. My brain screamed this isn't possible even as my eyes confirmed it. That bag, my name, was already waiting for me. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the glass. My heart slammed against my ribs. How long had he known me? How had he prepared it? Was it really my blood? Or was it some kind of twisted placeholder? I slammed the fridge shut. When I sat back down at the table, my hands shook under the cloth. My smile felt glued on, a mask stretched too tight. Every second dragged like an hour. He came back from the bathroom and smiled at me like nothing was wrong. "Want more wine?" he asked. I forced a laugh. I'm good. My throat felt like sandpaper. The rest of the night was agony. I nodded at the right times, laughed weakly at his comments, pretended to check my phone like I had a busy morning. All the fridge hummed behind me, full of names and blood. My name among them. Eventually, I said I had to leave early. He looked a little disappointed but didn't argue. He walked me to the door, hugged me lightly, and said, "I had a really great time." His tone was warm, genuine, like this was any other date. The second the door shut, I bolted. Down the hall. Down the stairs 2 at a time. Out onto the street, sucking in the cold night air like I'd been drowning. My chest was tight, my breath ragged. I didn't stop moving until I was 3 blocks away, until my legs burned and my hands were shaking too hard to type. At home, I locked every door and window. Drew the curtains. Sat on the couch with my knees pulled up, staring into the dark. The image wouldn't leave me. Bags of blood, row after row, names written in ink. My name among them. I checked his profile again. Read every word like it was new. Donor. That was it. Just one word. No details. No explanation. Now I wonder how many women swiped right thinking it meant what I did. And how many of their names are already stacked in his fridge. The first 2 dates were fine. Basic, really. Drinks at a bar for the first one. Pizza for the second. She wasn't over the top, wasn't boring either. Just kind of normal. She had this habit of laughing a little too long at things, but I figured maybe she was just nervous. Everyone has quirks. I wasn't looking for a soulmate anyway, just someone to spend time with. By the 3rd date, she invited me over. Said she wanted to cook for me. I figured why not? Saves me money, saves me from having to pick another spot. Her place looked like every other apartment I had been in. Neutral walls, string lights strung lazily across the living room, a candle burning that smelled like vanilla. Soft music played from a speaker on the counter. She was dressed casual, jeans, oversized sweater, smiling as she poured me wine. Dinner was pasta. Nothing special, but good enough. We sat across from each other, talking about work, friends, random things. It felt easy. Comfortable even. After we ate, she set her glass down, smiled, and said she wanted to show me her room. I didn't think much of it. I followed her down the hall, glass in hand, feeling relaxed. The door was closed. She opened it slowly, almost dramatically, and stepped aside for me to go in first. At first glance, it looked like a normal bedroom. Queen-size bed in the middle, blankets pulled tight. A dresser by the wall, curtains drawn. It wasn't until my eyes adjusted that I noticed the photos. Polaroids, hundreds of them. They covered every inch of the walls, not just hung up, layered, stacked, edges curling, some pinned over others like she couldn't stop adding more. Each one was of a man, some smiling, some caught mid-laugh, some looking away as though they hadn't realized they were being photographed. Different faces, different places. But every single one had the same thing in common, both eyes scratched out. Not neatly, not gently. Thick, angry lines carved into the paper, sometimes tearing straight through the photo, sometimes just leaving gouges where the eyes should have been. My throat went dry. I stepped closer, squinting at the wall by her dresser. A man at a restaurant table, smile frozen, eyes destroyed. Another sitting on a park bench, his eyes ripped out with jagged cuts. One by the window. He was standing in what looked like her living room, the exact couch I'd just been sitting on, eyes gouged into shreds. My pulse thundered in my ears, and then I saw it. In the center of the wall, directly across from the bed, was a photo of me, taken at the pizza place on our second date. I was mid-bite, looking stupid, grease shiny on my chin. My eyes were still there, untouched. My chest clenched. I asked what all this was, trying to sound casual, but my voice cracked halfway through. She smiled softly, stepped up behind me, and said I was different. Different. The word echoed in my head, heavy and strange. How did she even have that photo? I didn't remember her taking it. She hadn't held her phone up. Did she snap at sneaky low angle? Or worse, had she followed me after, catching me when I wasn't looking? I turned back to the walls. So many men. Dozens, maybe hundreds. All with their eyes mutilated except me. She moved closer. Close enough that I felt her breath against my neck. Her voice dropped to a whisper as she said I was the only one who fit. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. My hands tightened around the wine glass until I thought it would shatter. My skin prickled with heat like the air itself was pushing against me. I forced a laugh. Tried to make it sound like a joke. Asked again what it was supposed to mean. She didn't answer. She just touched my arm lightly, fingertips tracing my skin. Then her nails dug in. Not hard enough to break skin, but sharp enough to make me flinch. I pulled back, muttering that it was late, that I had work in the morning. My voice was shaky too quick, but it was all I could get out. She tilted her head, studying me with that same faint smile, like she was trying to decide whether to believe me. Finally she nodded. Okay, she said softly. I'll walk you out. I didn't look back as we left the room. I didn't want to see the wall again. Didn't want to see my stupid face staring out from the middle of all those eyeless men. At the door, she kissed me on the cheek. Her lips were warm, lingering for a second too long. She told me she'd text me soon. I forced a smile, muttered something, and stepped into the hall. The second the door closed behind me, I walked fast. Down the hall, down the stairs, into the street. My chest was tight, sweat slick on my back, my pulse still racing. I didn't stop moving until I was blocks away. At home, I locked every door and window. Sat on the couch in the dark, trying to breathe, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. My phone buzzed. I stared at the screen, dread crawling up my throat. It was a message from her. A photo. A Polaroid. Of me. Taken that night, standing frozen in her bedroom surrounded by eyeless strangers. My eyes, still intact. For now. It didn't start creepy. If anything, it started kind of sweet. We matched on a random Tuesday night. His first message wasn't gross or cheesy, just a normal, hey, how'd your day been? Which honestly felt refreshing. I'd gotten so used to guys opening with crude comments or lazy one-word replies that someone who could string together a polite sentence felt like a miracle. We texted back and forth for a week before meeting. Nothing about him set off alarms. He asked about my job, my favorite books, what kind of music I liked. He replied fast but not clinky. He wasn't pushy. He wasn't weird. The first date was dinner. Casual place, nothing fancy. He was the type who opened doors, pulled out my chair, paid for the meal without making a show of it. He didn't over-compliment, just said I looked nice and asked about the little necklace I wore. My friends even said afterward he seemed like a safe pick, which on dating apps is about the highest compliment you can get. The second date was a movie. He bought popcorn, laughed at the right parts, didn't make any weird moves in the dark theater. It all felt normal, comfortable. By the third date, I wasn't nervous anymore. I actually felt relaxed. He invited me to his place, said he wanted to cook. I figured why not? If anything, I was impressed he could cook. His apartment was neat but lived in. Posters on the wall, shelves full of books, a computer setup that looked like it belonged to someone who spent way too much time online. But nothing about it screamed creep. He made pasta with some kind of homemade sauce, and it actually tasted good. He poured me wine, and we sat on his couch afterward, talking like we'd known each other for months instead of weeks. That's when he asked about my phone. "Don't you have pictures from your trip last summer?" he said. "I remember you mentioned it." I laughed and said I did, pulled my phone out, unlocked it, scrolled to my camera roll. I showed him the beach photos first, me sunburned, holding a ridiculous umbrella drink, standing on a boardwalk at sunset. He laughed with me, said I looked like I was glowing red. He asked if he could hold the phone. I didn't think twice. I handed it over. At first, he scrolled through the vacation pictures, nodding, making comments, smiling. I thought it was sweet that he was interested. But then he pressed the home button, opened Instagram. I froze. He started flicking through my posts one by one, looking at each picture like he was cataloging them. He lingered on some longer than others. My selfies, group photos with friends, shots of me at parties. His face was unreadable, calm, almost clinical. I laughed nervously, reached to grab the phone back, but he pulled it out of reach. "Just curious," he said softly. "You spend a lot of time on here, don't you?" I started to say something, but before I could, he tapped delete account. I froze completely. My brain couldn't process it fast enough. The confirmation popped up, and he pressed it without hesitation. All my photos, my messages, my entire account just gone. I lunged for the phone, but he held it tight, his grip surprisingly strong. His expression didn't even change. He just calmly said, "You don't need this anymore." My heart dropped into my stomach. I stammered something. "What the hell are you doing?" But he ignored me, moved straight to Snapchat, deleted it, then Twitter, then Facebook. Years of photos, chats, and memories vanished in seconds while I sat there in shock. I begged him to stop. My voice cracked, my hands shook, but he just kept going. His tone stayed calm, almost soothing. He said things like, "This stuff isn't good for you, and it just distracts you from real life." By the time he handed the phone back, everything was gone. My home screen looked empty. Bare. No notifications, no feeds, no little red dots screaming for attention, just silence. I gripped the phone with sweaty hands, staring at the blank rows of apps. My chest was tight, panic rising in my throat. He put his arm around me, then pulled me against him like he hadn't just destroyed years of my life. "You don't need all that," he murmured. "You have me now. That's all you need." I couldn't even respond. My throat was locked, my brain scrambled. I just nodded weakly, pretending to agree, even though my pulse was racing and my vision blurred. The rest of the night was surreal. He acted like nothing had happened. We watched TV, ate dessert, laughed at a stupid commercial. He kissed me goodnight at the door, smiling like this was any other date. When I got home, I sat on my bed for hours, staring at my phone. I prayed it was a mistake, a bad dream. But the apps were gone. My accounts were gone. My inbox was empty. I tried logging back in, but everything was deactivated. Wiped. My friends started texting me. "Why'd you block me? What happened to your account? Are you okay?" I didn't know how to explain. I didn't even know how to put it into words without sounding like I'd handed my whole life over willingly. The next morning, his text came first thing. "Hope you slept well," it read. "Bet you feel lighter now without all those distractions." I stared at the screen, nausea pooling in my stomach. I didn't reply. An hour later, he called. I let it ring. That afternoon, another message. "You'll see soon this is better." I felt trapped. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? That my date deleted my Instagram. Out loud, it sounded ridiculous. But it wasn't ridiculous. It was my entire life, my connections, my history, wiped clean because he decided I didn't need it. By the weekend, he showed up at my door. Flowers in his hand. That same calm smile on his face. He said he wanted to spend the day together like nothing had happened. My phone buzzed in my hand the whole time. Friends calling, messaging, trying to reach me. He glanced at the phone, smirked, and said, "You don't need them anymore. Just me." My stomach twisted. My legs locked. I stood frozen in the doorway, heart slamming against my ribs. Then slowly, I pushed the door shut in his face. The smile didn't slip, not even as the door clicked between us. I don't know if he left right away. I didn't check. I just stood there in the dark, curtains drawn, lights off, waiting for the knock to come back. It didn't. But my accounts never came back either. And every time I open my phone now, scrolling through the empty home screen, I half expect to see another message from him. Calm, smiling, telling me I don't need the outside world, that I only need him.